Like, it was one of those unusually quiet afternoons in a Swiggy workday, right? And I was like, why is life so peaceful, right? And I get a call saying calling from Mukesh Bansal's office and he'd like to speak to you. Look, I was born in a township, and it was a microcosm of the entire country. There were people from all over India. It's a very small township in Orissa. So, just the facilities, the greenery, the open spaces, so we played a lot, right? And that also brought in a culture of, playing and always having this early idea of winning, losing, teamwork, etc., right? And then I think the pivot was when we had to move to Hyderabad. And I was in, one of the premier schools in Hyderabad, and, suddenly everybody seemed way more knowledgeable, way more intelligent than me. And I had to again, work my way up, right? The first time I was outside Hyderabad was actually IIM Calcutta. Typically, students go out during their undergraduation, and my first time outside home was actually post-graduation. And I realized that I actually wasn't ready to live alone, even when I was, 21. And it took a long while for me to, come to terms with how to manage myself while doing what the world expects me to do and what I expect myself to do, right? P&G is a school, right? And so when you do these kind of roles and you do these kind of roles over a long period of time, you really learn how to think consumer. You learn how to think consumer in the context of a category. You learn what are the basic skills, habits and practices you need to have to just be a good professional. So there was this particular decision that we were taking on hair care. What many people don't know is that India is a market where 80% of the market is in sachets, and only 20% of the market the volume of the market is in bottles. Categories incentivize you to buy, bigger bottles, but what happens in shampoos is that, the sachets are actually per ml cheaper than the bottles, and that is one of the biggest reasons why the market is the way it is. P&G decided, and we decided, that we needed to invert this pyramid back again, and the pyramid now needed to make sense. The move was to, increase the price per ml of the sachets and decrease the price per ml of the bottle. While it seems that simple and on paper literally follows as a linear piece of logic, you're actually risking 80% of your business. It was sort of a masterclass in understanding what the consumer will think, how to communicate to the customer, how to make sure that you scenario plan what competition might do, how to make sure that you handle the channel in between, how do you react if something goes wrong, right? What if things don't go according to plan? It is an absolute masterclass of planning. Bringing each and every piece together, right, over that period of time is just, again, something that happens in these extreme initiatives in FMCG, and we'd had real fun. It was, I guess, a chichore moment for us. We lost, but it was a glorious loss. I'm a fairly restless sort of a person. So frankly, 12 years at P&G is not me. So around 2018, I generally started getting edgy and wanted to try my hand at something new, and wanted to see if I could do something new. And as it turned out, Vivek moved to Swiggy. Eventually, I met Harsha, I met Nandy, I met Phani, I met you, right? And you guys were kind enough to, think that, I should be joining the place. And I genuinely think that, that one decision has completely changed my life. I realized that, in life, there are two kinds of bad decisions you can take, right? You can either regret doing something, or you can regret not doing something, right? Somewhere in 2017-18, I started realizing that the regret of doing something is a better regret to have. Doing something and thinking that, oh, I should not have done it, is probably a better regret to have than to have never acted and wondering if you should have done it. The talent density at Swiggy, I don't know, those monthly review meetings, like I would look around the room and be wondering, what is the average IQ of this room? I don't think I've ever been in a place that has that kind of talent density. that Swiggy has had, right? Because I just genuinely think that the team that they've built in Swiggy is, amazing. But I also had, leaders like Vivek and, colleagues like you and, leaders like Harsha and Phani and, these guys who, really helped me navigate those periods of uncertainty. It, was the most, call it pivotal career move that I think I've made. Harsha for me is absolute driver of standards. The great thing about Harsha is that he would have very, very principle to principle conversations, right? Like he would say, I expect you to be, delivering a customer experience of this level, right? You can't be lower. I just find it unreal because I don't know how somebody can hold on to those standards and not get tired of communicating them to such a large number of people over such a long period of time, right? So for me, Harsha is that person who's just never let me off the hook. It doesn't end by just you having the right person, right? You should constantly have a lookout for what are people doing well, right? And have that conversation going. And sometimes it's not even a conversation, right? Because a lot of times even people themselves don't know what they're good at, or they may not have fully thought it. Just the kind of talent and the pace at which things happened and, the kind of crisis we faced during those 3.5 years, right? COVID hit during that time and, all that. We had to take some really tough decisions, and there could have been many, and there were many points at which things seemed insurmountable, not just personally, as a company. I think what happened is, if I have to use very few words, Mukesh Bansal happened, right? So, when you get a call, like, it was one of those unusually quiet afternoons in a Swiggy workday, right? And I was like, why is life so peaceful, right? And I get a call saying, I'm calling from Mukesh Bansal's office and he'd like to speak to you. Who passes this on, right? And then I started speaking to Mukesh and, an absolute visionary. I think I was reading somewhere on LinkedIn about, somebody said this about Mukesh, that the number of insights per words, right, spoken, is probably the highest you ever come across. I felt like, I wanted to work with him. And that was a very large part of the motivation, if not 100% of the motivation. It was a very large part of the motivation of why I decided to move on from Swiggy. It was absolutely not an easy decision, but, I still believe that it was the right decision. He would constantly urge you, so you would have done this crazy amount of work to, he would give you some piece of work, you'll get to the bottom of it, you would have dug out every little piece of detail there is on it, and you would have made this grand presentation or a grand document which captures everything there is to know about that piece of work. He'd come in and say, can you tell me in 2 sentences what all of this is? So if you are unclear about what is happening, don't be surprised if the meeting is over in 2 minutes. It's over. So I don't know where that comes from. I don't know if, if I had done even 50% of what he had done, I think I would be probably, going to different talk shows and speaking to people and telling them how life should be lived. But he's not one of those, right? He's always working. So, and that, call it karma yoga aspect of his personality is also something very interesting. Well, I think largely speaking, Saurabh, me and my wife, we're both very safe. She's a true blue Bengali, right? And she loves her FDs, right? I'm fairly safe. So a lot of my investment, about 60% of my portfolio, maybe 65% of my portfolio is in, call it safe asset classes, right? The stable money asset classes. I think personally, look, we all agree and, on the consumer opportunity, right? I myself, like I said, a very, I'm over-indexed on these asset classes from an investment standpoint, personal investment standpoint, and I completely resonate with the need for a platform like stable money to exist, right? So when you first came and spoke to me about this idea, I was very clear that, it was immediate resonance for me, right? That it made sense. And so the consumer opportunity was very apparent, and And I think that a lot of people would have agreed with me at that point in time on the consumer opportunity and seen it the same way as I did, and as I still do. But I think what swung it for me was not just the consumer opportunity. I think for me, Saurabh being the guy, along with Harish, right? Being the people, Saurabh and Harish being the people who are tasked with tapping into this opportunity was a very big reason, probably 90% of the reason why I actually said, no, I'm willing to take a bet on this company with my own money, right? And I'm fairly sure that, there are the makings of a team that can achieve that. What I would love to see is a team that, goes on to create a company that is truly seen as a breakout company. I'm very sure that, there is a team in the making here, and you guys have a great shot at it, I feel.